I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX. Hey everybody, and we're back with the Internet Explorer PC yet again. In this video, we're going to be using it to test out some floppy disk drives. So, of course, there's a little retro, if I want to call it that, or vintage Hewlett-Packard Pavilion project there. I just did a long video about that, and one of the issues I've had, which I didn't really report much in the video except for the floppy it's seeming like the floppy disk wasn't readable, is the floppy drive. It's a no-go. It will not read floppy disk. And I tried a handful of different floppy drives on that thing, and none of them just would read. Except for one. Well, of course, the floppy drive that was in that machine already to begin with. Of course, I couldn't use it because the location of the ribbon connector was interfering with the CPU fan of the new motherboard that's in it. So, go figure. So, my idea here was to take out these floppy drives, the few that I have, and test them on a native computer that has a floppy disk controller or floppy drive controller on board. So of course the IEPC has one, and it's got a floppy drive in it already. So go ahead and start this up, and well, got to hook up power first. Go ahead and start this up. Okay, so I got this system up and running now. So, of course, got the floppy drive there connected to the floppy disk cable, and got it connected to the power source. And one thing I like to mention about floppy drives, of course, I know our veteran PC techs out there who've been doing this for many years, who work with floppy drives, know this. But floppy drives, or at least the ribbon cables that run the floppy drive, one thing you'll notice about them is, I got one right here, you'll see how the end of the cable has this twist in it. Now of course this particular cable is labeled to tell you which side plugs into the floppy drive and which side plugs into the motherboard, but not all of them had that. So what could happen sometimes is, if you weren't paying attention, you would insert this cable backwards. You would plug this side into the motherboard and this side into the floppy drive, and of course the floppy drive wouldn't work properly. Matter of fact, if the system if the system checks the floppy drive from the beginning, it will throw an error which would typically say something like floppy disk fail 40, and it would be because either the cable was inserted upside down or the cable was installed backwards. So got the drive in there, but I don't think the motherboard is actually configured to actually look for a floppy disk drive, so I got to restart the machine and go into the BIOS and check. Well, first I'll check in my computer here, which, let me see here. And of course it's not there, so yeah, it's disabled in the BIOS, so I gotta go in and turn it back on. Okay, so now we're in the BIOS. I think it's in Advanced BIOS Features. Let's see, sometimes it might be in Standard. Yeah, Drive A, right now it's set to none. We're going to set that to 1.44 meg, 3.5 inch. And now we should be good to go. And we'll go back into Windows. Okay, so now we're back in Windows. And you may have just heard, and you can see floppy disk drive now installed. So pull up Explorer, and there's our floppy disk drive. And I got this little test floppy here. It's got a notepad file on it, or text file rather. So there was one out of the whole stack of drives, one of the drives actually worked on that USB floppy controller, and it was this Tri-Gem drive, which was originally out of that Hewlett-Packard Pavilion system. And Tri-Gem, that's a manufacturer of motherboards and components for OEM markets. Matter of fact, they built, I think it is, they actually built that system. They also built some earlier E-machine systems too. You would usually see it on the back of the system who it was manufactured by. Alright, let's see if we can access that file. Alrighty, so you can see we can actually access it. Let's see if we can open its contents. And you can see we have a little text file there. You can see it better now. A little text file that basically says, hey, the floppy drive is working. Okay, so I got a different floppy disk drive hooked up, and I got this and just sitting there on the table. It was just a little easier to do it this way instead of feeding it into the 3.5-inch bay in the case. But got it hooked up, and I got the floppy disk in there. Let's see what this one here does. So this is one of the ones that definitely didn't want to function with the USB floppy disk controller. So let's see what happens here. You can see how this one's just sitting. So we got a good disk. We know that. The drive LED is lit up. And I can hear the floppy drive, or the floppy disk, spinning. Okay, so we got an error with this one. It says A is not accessible, no ID address mark was found on the floppy disk. But yet we know that this disk actually works fine in a different drive. So I'm going to consider this floppy drive in need of investigating. Probably, I'm going to guess maybe the head needs to be cleaned, and that's something I'm going to try to focus on probably in another video. Okay, we got our next Canada hooked up, if you want to call it that. This is a Sony floppy disk drive. This is actually probably the newest floppy drive I have on hand. It was manufactured in December 2008, which again was a very, I'd say, late period for floppy disk drives. This came out of a Dell system, you can probably tell by the way it looks. Got this sticker right up here, and probably got a Dell part number on there somewhere. So here's sort of a floppy disk, and let's give it a shot. See what this one does. Heard it pick up the disc, and I thought I heard the head for a second. Still, this one's kind of doing the same thing. It's just it's got the disk activity indicator lit, and I can hear it spinning the disk. But that's about it. This one's saying it needs to format the disk, so we are not going to format the disk because we know that the disk is fine. So we're going to assume this one here also needs attention too. Like I said, probably head cleaning, because it apparently can't seem to read the floppy disk. And now we got A is inaccessible. The drive cannot find the sector requested. Okay, I got a Mitsumi drive here. Mitsumi, however you want to pronounce that. Got that hooked up, and so I got this in here too to show you. The connector on the back of this one is a little weird. Now it applies to all these Mitsumi drives I have. A lot of the pins are just simply not there. I guess they're not needed. And you got your power connection up here. And what's interesting to note is, I think, well, I last talked about this USB floppy drive adapter, which is over in that HP computer. I kind of remarked on how I was interested in how the floppy drives were only running on USB power. Well, lo and behold, if you look at this label, you can see how the drive clearly says it only requires 5 volts. So yeah, it's interesting. The floppy drive power connection does have a 12 volt wire on there, but apparently it's not even being used. It's just the drives only make use of 5 volts, which is why they can run off of USB power, and thus run off this little adapter that, of course, the adapter board feeds the drive power, as you can see right there. Got that little add-on cable there which powers the drive. So, got our test floppy disk here. Insert that. And go into computer and try to access it. Okay, so that one picked right up. So I got 2 piles of drives here, and I'm going to stick this one in the supposedly good pile. Now, what's really interesting is I don't recall the HP machine over there with that USB adapter, floppy drive adapter. I don't recall it actually working with that. But what's funny is the Mid-Tower Lux, in fact, has a Mitsumi floppy drive in it with this same adapter. So it's a little weird. I don't know. So we'll assume this drive is good, and we'll move on to this next one. Okay, so we got this Mitsumi drive hooked up now, and got the floppy disk inserted into it. So let's give it a shot. There we go. Accesses it just fine. So that's really interesting. So now I'm going to actually pull the floppy drive that's in that little HP computer out and give it a try on this. And if it works, I'm gonna be, I guess I can say, puzzled. Okay, so now I have the floppy drive pulled out of that HP system, and insert this disk. You can see I had this one rigged up with the original eject button from the original drive. So that's the one I installed because it has the power and data connections all on the right side. That way it wouldn't interfere with the CPU fan. So let's go and pull up a computer and let's see what happens with this one. I'm pretty sure it's going to probably work. Yep, not a problem. So yeah, it's really bizarre. So it seems like that that USB to floppy adapter is very finicky about what it can and can't work with. So I guess to wrap up this video, I will show you what happens with the HP system. Okay, so now I have the floppy drive I had originally installed in this little classic HP case hooked up. It's got it sitting on the table, of course. Got the USB to floppy adapter hooked up. And what's interesting is this time, when I boot up the system, I actually heard the floppy drive not only make that little click, little click sound it makes when it gets power, but actually I heard the head jog a little bit, which makes me think perhaps things are going to work this time. And also, if you watch the video about this project, you may recall how it took this thing a long time to post. Well, now it took no time at all to get to the splash screen and then start Windows. So let's see here. So let's insert a floppy disk and see what happens. Could have just been, maybe it was just a bad connection. I mean, it could happen. I was pretty certain I had this thing inserted all the way in, but who knows. So let's go ahead and pull up File Explorer and let's see if we can access what's on that floppy drive. And of course, this computer's doing 100 different things at once. So we got it's a single core 2-thread Celeron G, I think 640 or 460 processor. Alright, let's see if we can access the floppy disk drive. And what do you know, it actually works now. So yeah, guys, maybe it was just, maybe I didn't have this thing inserted all the way, or just didn't have it seated perfectly. And perhaps that was causing a problem. So, yeah, we can actually access the, notepad file just fine now. Go figure. So yeah, guys, I know this probably was not the most exciting video, but I figured to take you on for a little ride here and just test out a few floppy disk drives and come to the realization that maybe it was just I didn't have this inserted perfectly the first time, and that was why it was bizarre. Like literally, you can insert a floppy disk into this thing. You would see the floppy drive in Windows, which that's simply because of that. It doesn't really matter between whether this can communicate with that or not. It's because that's really just the controller. And you try to access the file, or you try to access the floppy disk, it would spin up and spin the disk, but not do anything else. It was just really bizarre. So in case you're wondering about that little USB adapter, let me go ahead and show you what exactly it is. Because you can actually pull it up in Device Manager and see exactly what it is. Yeah, this thing definitely runs like a Celeron, I'll say that. I'm not sure what this missing device driver there is for, but see right there, it's a Teak USB UF00X USB device. And it's funny, and in fact, one of the floppy drives I tested is indeed a Teak or TEAC floppy disk drive. See right there, Teak Corporation, made in Thailand. But yeah, so apparently the issue all along was perhaps poor connection between the floppy to USB adapter and the floppy disk drive. I mean, who knows? So I guess I'll go and throw this thing back together and probably good to go. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Well, everybody, that wraps it up for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the computer channel, and be sure to tick that bell so you'll get notified when new videos are posted. Also, don't forget, I have a whole lot of other interesting videos here on the channel to check out. And also, in addition, I have a second channel, CubeComp MTDX, where I have all sorts of other videos not exactly related to technology. Links to the channels are available at the end of this video. Again, I thank you for your support and thanks for watching this video.